I'm Shoshana.
And I'm Holly.
And you're listening to Future Talent Talks, a podcast that talks about all things early careers,
Gen A to Z, stereotypes, social and societal trends,
and everything in between.
So welcome to the first episode, all about us.
Yeah, oh my God. I can't actually believe we're finally recording this. It feels so weird.
This has been in the works for quite a while.
Yes, and Holly, I guess it's fair to say you took a little bit of convincing, didn't you?
Yeah.
I've been nagging you like non-stop for the past however many months, but you finally agreed and we're finally doing it, so I'm actually so excited.
So am I.
Yeah, so as Holly said, we thought for this episode it would be a really good opportunity for you to kind of get to know us better, so we're going to talk a little bit about who we are, how we got into what we're doing, why we're doing this podcast, why we're actually worth listening to, and also what you can expect for the rest of the season, right?
Yes.
So this is going to be kind of conversational style. So maybe Holly, let's start with you. Would love to hear a little bit about kind of your story and, you know, how you got here and how you got into doing what you're doing.
Sure. So I'm Holly Hobbs. And I am the founding director of Apprentivia, which is an employer branding agency, helping employers to attract, recruit and onboard Gen Z apprentices. So essentially how I got to where I am is about 4-ish years ago now, I realised I didn't want to get into the traditional university route. So I was like, I want to get into the world of work, I want to get paid for it, I want to get some experience, I want to potentially study towards something. But I didn't want to get into the debt, as I mentioned. So I found out about degree apprenticeships and I was like, perfect, I can get a degree for free. Like, what the hell? I couldn't believe it. So I then started applying for degree apprenticeships and little did I know how hard it was going to be. I went into face over 30 rejections before getting into Microsoft. So I was on the Microsoft Chartered Management Degree Apprenticeship Scheme. When I got into that scheme, I started to document my journey on TikTok and I gained traction quite quickly, got thousands of views, loads of comments, people saying to me, I'm going through the exact same thing, struggling to get into an apprenticeship. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm not the only one, because at my college, there wasn't very many people that were going down this apprenticeship route. And so I just felt really isolated and alone throughout the whole time. So when I did that on social media and got that traction, it was sort of like a bittersweet moment, because it was like, oh my gosh, this is obviously not great for everyone else, but I feel less alone. Anyway, so long story short, then started my business helping other people get into apprenticeships, and now it's broadened and now I'm helping employers to also attract them, because I noticed there was a gap there in terms of how apprenticeships are marketed, essentially. So yeah, now I work with brands like BT Group, British Gas, Barclay Group, basically across loads of different sectors.
Oh my God, love that. And also just a humble little plug for Holly. Last week she was actually on Good Morning Britain, which is amazing. It was your first live TV appearance, and I just feel like that's such a career highlight, especially as you're so early on in your journey. So congrats. I'm so proud of you.
Such a pinch me moment.
Yes, and also for those that don't know, Holly and I were actually having a meeting about this podcast. We were kind of doing a co-working, and then it was so funny how it happened. Like Holly had her phone and she was like, what are all these numbers calling me? And I was like, oh, they're probably spam calls.
Yeah.
And then she texted the person, who is this? And then they got back to her as soon as it was, and they were like, oh, I'm so-and-so from Good Morning Britain. And we were just both like, oh my God. Like, we were screaming, we were so excited. And oh my God, I'm so happy and like proud of you.
It was so nice that we got to experience that together.
Yes,
so thank
exactly.
you for that.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's hear a bit about you. How did you get into this whole sector?
God, well, I'm going to try and keep it short and sweet, because who doesn't love talking about themselves?
Yeah. Give us a full story.
Yeah, okay, so my name is Shoshana. I am founder of Fairy Job Mother, which is a kind of, I'd say, two-sided company. So on one side, it's an online community where I help young people understand the world of work and build their confidence at work. And on the flip side, it is a consultancy where I work with businesses and organisations to help them understand, engage, and kind of develop young people better. And I guess how I got into doing what I'm doing, without going too far back, growing up, I wasn't particularly academic. I failed my exams. I pretty much got kicked out of school at one point. And I just felt like really, really lost in my career and everything. However, due to my kind of negotiation skills, which is something I'm quite proud of, I actually managed to get into university and get into my chosen course. At the time, I wanted to get into marketing, and this was several years ago, so I don't actually think apprenticeships existed in the marketing space, even though I wish they did. So I managed to get into my uni course. However, when I started, I very much felt like I was at a disadvantage because I didn't really have the grades to be there, right? So I kind of made it my mission to overcompensate in a way, and I wanted to get as much work experience as I could. So I knew that when I graduated, I'd be super employable. So obviously the first place you go to when you want career advice is you go to your uni career services, who, not gonna lie, they weren't great. It was just one centre stuck in the middle of uni. The advice kind of wasn't very tailored. It was just a one size fitted all approach. So I think after the first conversation, I kind of briefed myself and I was like, okay, you're gonna have to do this on your own. So literally made it quite literally my mission to get as much work experience as I could. I ended up working every summer. I worked part-time at a startup during my final year, and I was lucky enough to kind of graduate with 2.5 years experience. And I remember when I finished, I kind of thought, I'd love to be able to help other people, and I probably actually know more than the career services do at this point, having been on this journey on my own. So it's kind of this idea that I always had in the back of my head, but I was about to start a full-time graduate job, didn't have time to do anything. So I was obviously just progressing in my career, and a few years later, obviously COVID hit, and I was a couple years into my career at that point. Prior to kind of COVID, I was traveling around the world lots with my job, and I had all this extra time. And it was kind of at that period during COVID where, everyone had a side hustle. And I almost thought like I should be doing something with this spare time. So kind of actually due to societal pressures, I ended up starting what I initially just thought was like an Instagram page where I was sharing like career advice and guidance to other young people, to people that were struggling to find jobs, to other young people who were maybe in jobs but they didn't know how to progress, because at the time I'd been able to kind of progress quite quickly in my role. So anyway, I'm rambling. So I did that for about kind of 2.5 years, was able to build an online community, which I monetized pretty early on. And then as of about kind of a year ago, I decided to leave my full-time job and see if I could make it a business. And yeah, within the past year, I've been kind of building out the employer consultancy side. As through a lot of the work I was doing, I noticed that, there were lots of young people who were like super ambitious and really, really wanted to do well, but they didn't necessarily know how to kind of navigate that. And also on the other side, I noticed there were lots of employers who really cared about kind of helping young people, which was great, but they didn't necessarily always have that kind of additional context and didn't necessarily understand maybe some of the specific challenges they were facing. So I kind of felt like that was a gap I could kind of fix. And yeah, I've been working with some amazing employers to kind of help them revamp their development programs, to empower their line managers, to do kind of general consultancy. But that's me in a nutshell, I would say.
I think your story is super inspirational, and
likewise.
Well, thank you. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited to do the podcast with you. But also, I think the success that you've built up so far within your business within like a year is insane. Insane. I'm so proud of you.
Oh my God. I feel like this podcast is just going to be like us hyping each other up. And I love that.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you. I guess maybe another question which might be quite interesting or just a little bit of fun. Obviously to kind of get to know us on a bit more personal level maybe. What would you say is like one fun fact about you that people don't know? If you want a second to think, I can literally just share mine.
Please.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to do two. I'm going to be greedy.
Oh.
So my first one is I've actually featured on a billboard in Times Square, which is really cool.
Tell me.
Yeah. And then another fun fact is my family are like volunteer kind of fosterers for Guide Dogs UK, as you already know. So they kind of board and look after guide dogs in training. So I love dogs. Dogs literally helped me get through COVID, and I'm not even going to go into like how my heart got broken with the guide dog we had during COVID and then when she had to go away. But it was bittersweet because obviously she went to a sight impaired person and she went to kind of change her life. But those are my two fun facts. What about you, Holly? Now pressure is on.
I'm not even joking. This question gives me PTSD.
Sorry, I know it's such a like cheesy cliche question.
It's from the like apprenticeship onboarding stuff and like the assessment centres when they go round. Oh God, I said one of the cringiest things once. But anyway, I'm not going to go into
Tell us what it is.
No.
It can't be as bad as my boyfriend's. His fun fact is always that his family have like 6 chickens and they're all named after Disney princesses.
Aw,
That's his fun
that's
fact
cute.
for like years. That's the one he uses
love
to this
that.
day.
Well, I think my fun fact that I'm going to share today is that I was a dancer since the age of 3.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that
Did you
about
not?
you. No.
Yeah, so I danced every week since the age of 3. I did shows, like full-on theatre shows, competitions in London. And so I think that's why I'm quite good on social media, if I do say so myself, because I have this like performance element within myself. And also I wanted to be a YouTuber since like I was 7 or something. My mum brought me how to be a YouTuber books, and so I've always had this like social media sort of passion inside of me, and now it's like coming out. It's really nice.
Oh my God, I love that.
It's like a full circle sort of moment.
That is nice. And you know, those YouTuber dreams may be actualised because we will be posting the videos
Yeah.
on YouTube. So
Yeah,
that
that's so
counts.
true.
But oh my God, I did not know that about you. That's
Yeah.
so cool. It makes sense as well. You've got this kind of confidence about you, and that obviously
Oh,
was
yeah.
developed from a very young age.
I know, yeah, it's really true. And like you learn so many skills from these different things, you know. You don't have to set out one like career path that you want to do. I think a lot of people feel that pressure, but actually like they're going to teach you loads and loads of different things. And I guess it sort of relates to what we're doing right now on our podcast. This is the first time we're doing a podcast. And we're not going to be perfect. Like it's teaching us loads of different things, and we're just going to keep getting better and better.
So I guess another question I have for you, and oh my God, my sinuses are so blocked. So I'm hoping I'm not just going to be sniffling and like, it's like my nose is really like, so anyway, don't judge people. I promise I'm not like this every day. I've got a sinus infection and it's very like blocked up. But I think another question for you, like on the back of that, and I'll obviously answer afterwards, is obviously kind of based on like your background. You mentioned that kind of dancer upbringing. What are maybe like 1 or 2 skills or traits you felt like you kind of developed through that, which not only helps you kind of run your business, but also kind of helps you support and like empower young people?
Oh, what question? Okay. Oh, I'd probably say the most important thing is discipline. That helps me so much with my business, and resilience. Because I mean, I wasn't even a full-on professional dancer. Like, I can't compare what I had to a professional dancer, but even that was tough. Like, so yeah, just showing up even when you don't feel like it. Like, I remember I used to have shows, I used to feel like really sick beforehand or like ill, and like you just have to get up on the stage and act like nothing's going wrong. And yeah, so those 2 things are really important. In terms of helping young people,
I think those are good traits to
Yeah.
like, that you have those to help obviously teach them to young people through the work you're doing.
yeah,
Definitely. Because
yeah.
I feel like, you know, resilience is a key one, especially when you start the world of work. And obviously, what was the other one you said, sorry?
Discipline.
Discipline. Yeah, I think the discipline one, I like admire that so much about you because you are so
Really?
disciplined.
Oh.
And like, I'm not saying I'm not disciplined, but
Yeah.
there are lots of areas in my life where I'd like to be more disciplined. And for those that don't know, like Holly and I talk like all the time, like every day. So when we're like having bad days or when we're not feeling well, like we talk about it.
Yeah.
And like you were just so disciplined, like you just get on with things. Whereas like maybe I would be like wallowing in bed for like, you know, 20 minutes before getting up, and you were just like, no, you got to eat the frog, just get up and do it. And I feel like that's like such a good trait. Of course, so
thank
is resilience.
Yeah. So what are your key
I think
skills or attributes that you learned?
well, it sounds really boring, but I think obviously like resilience again, that is just, I don't want this to be like a cliche podcast, but I think obviously because like I failed my exams, like I got fired from my first job, like I pretty much got kicked out of school, and like kind of due to other personal things as well. I suffered like rejection and setback from like quite a young age in comparison to most people. I feel like most people maybe, you know, get to university, or, you know, for those, you know, straight A students, they don't really, not all of them necessarily face adversity or rejection until they actually start work. And then sometimes that's where challenges and problems occur because they're so used to kind of perfection. So I think definitely like resilience, because I faced rejection from a young age, and also just like confidence and like the ability to kind of just back myself no matter what.
Yes.
And
Like a bit of self-love.
Yes, and I've just learned from like such a young age that like I don't follow the rules, right? If I don't
Love
get
it.
into university, I'm getting into university, like, because I have the passion, I have the drive, and like just because I don't have a few grades, why can you not let me on the course? Like for most people, they'll probably be like, oh, okay, like I've failed, like I'm gonna go and do something else for you. But I wanted to get into university. Equally, there are situations where people tell me no, or the reason I feel like I was able to kind of progress relatively quickly in my career from starting as a graduate to kind of 4 years later being in a senior leadership position where I was
killed it.
managing teams globally, etc., is because I do not follow the rules and I ask for things that most people don't have the guts to ask for, and I get them. I don't always get them, but for most people it's almost just asking. If you don't ask, you don't get. So I think ability to kind of just back myself and not follow the rules and not take no for an answer. Obviously sometimes you have to take no for an answer, but not until you've knocked down every single door. And it helps me a lot in my business as well. So yeah.
Love that. I always say to people that no means next opportunity.
Yes.
And I've said that in a few of my school talks. On the resilience part, I know this is meant to be the intro episode, but we're just going to get into it.
We can always cut it out.
Yeah. It's really interesting because I've heard a lot, and I agree with it really, that resilience can't be taught.
You have to experience.
Yeah, you have to experience it. So it's a really difficult one because I hear a lot of employers saying, we want people that are resilient, that get through tough times, and Gen Z just aren't like that. But actually, like, they haven't had a chance to learn it.
Exactly. And I feel like it's not that they're not resilient. They are resilient, but they're resilient in different ways because I think everybody that went through the pandemic and managed to kind of get out of it alive, especially young people, especially Gen Z, where they were at such kind of key formative parts of their lives, the fact anyone was able to get out of that in one piece, that is resilience, but I think it's a different type of resilience.
Yeah, I agree. So that is basically a little bit of a flavour as to what we're going to be speaking about throughout this season. We're going to be diving into topics like resilience, like
we're going on to this section. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're going on to the section already, Holly. Go ahead.
We'll just integrate this in.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're going to be talking about loads of different topics throughout the season, like resilience, Gen Z, trends on social media, onboarding, salary, attraction, you name it, we're going to be speaking about it.
Yeah, and I feel like obviously that wasn't an exhaustive list. We've got loads of topics in the works, but I feel like personally the unique there's lots of podcasts out there, there's lots of suppliers, there's lots of businesses which arguably we could say is similar to ours, right? But I think personally the unique perspective that Holly and I have is slightly different in terms of, number one, we've kind of been there,
done that,
learned through experience. We've been in the position of these young people. Equally, we have both built our own communities of young people online, so we have a unique kind of aspect in understanding of some of these kind of social and societal trends that not everyone has. And then finally, we are working directly with employers. So in my opinion, without being big-headed, I do feel like we kind of have a slightly unique and kind of slightly holistic view. So yeah, we're going to be talking about some of the similar topics that maybe other people talk about, but they're going to be with that kind of social insider aspect. So for example, one topic we both feel super passionate about is like social media and like the impact that is playing on, number one, you know, not only kind of creating unrealistic expectations of careers for young people, but also some of the info it's giving them around kind of AI and work, etc. So we're just going to add like a new lens on these things. So yeah, definitely stay tuned.
Thank you for listening to Future Talent Talks. For more on me, Holly,
And me, Shoshana.
Make sure to follow us on LinkedIn, follow the podcast,
and tune back in next Monday. And PS, don't forget to check the show notes where you'll find an email address where you can send us feedback, and also do let us know if there are any topics you want us to cover and you'd love to hear our perspective on. Thank you so much for listening.